pandemic and the decisions that we had to be part of is quite an initiation by fire. And so many of you have done that, and I want to thank you for that. More importantly, I want to thank your organization for the support that they have been through the provincial government. I, as the Minister of Government Relations, have had the opportunity to, on a weekly basis almost, talk to the city mayors, SUMA, SARM, the New North, along with many officials from education, from health, from the business response team, from the Public Health Safety Agency, where we could hear from government as to the decisions that we've made, but more importantly, for government to hear from your communities, be it through SUMA or the city mayors or SARM or their New North, as to what is going on in your community. And, you know, it has been a tough time. It has been very difficult, decisions that have had to be made. I mean, I can't believe if you go back a year and a half ago, we told you who you could have in your house, and people listened. It's an amazing transition to get to where we are today. And so, you know, we've all learned to kind of cope with, virtual meetings where we had to push the mute button or not mute button. Some of the best comments I've ever made have had the mute button on. And thank heavens, some of the comments that I made, I had the mute button off, just as importantly. But I just want to thank you for all the work that you have done over the last number of months to get Saskatchewan to where we are today, to be able to have a conference of close to 800 to 900 people in a room, being able to network. I mean, the speeches are important, but the networking in between, the suppers out. I had the opportunity last night to be with BHB Billiton and a number of communities that are be affected, whether it's the mayor from Humboldt and a number of the communities around that area, and a good chat as to the impact that that will have. Now, you don't get that at a breakout session or a session of 1,000 people, but you sure do when everybody's in the same city and the networking that can take place. And I think that's, for me, as valuable as any of the speeches that are probably already going on too long when you know lunches out there. But so good to be back in the same room. I just briefly want to touch on the budget that was announced last week, a couple weeks ago, and the Premier spoke a little bit about it yesterday, but back on track. The finances are back on track. The economy's back on track, and public services are getting to be back on track. It's going to take a little while. The surgical wait time is certainly an issue. But the investment and the excitement that we see in this province, with the whether it's Jansen or the whether it's canola crushing, so many of the investments that we've seen into this province over the last 6 months makes it an extremely exciting time. I had the opportunity about a month and a half ago to be in the Balgoni High School and talk to the grade 12s. And I really looked out over that group and I thought there has never been a better time to be in grade 10 or 11 or 12 than it is right now in Saskatchewan. If you want to get into a healthcare career, there is a job for you. Increasing the number of RN seats by 150 in the last budget. You know, if you want to go to university and take an engineering degree, just think of the need for engineers in this province with $13 billion worth of investment announced. If you want to go to a tech school, if you want to go to Sask Polytechnique and take a trade, you're going to be wanted in this province. If you want to just leave school and start your career at whatever job it may be, that opportunity is here, and it hasn't always been that way in Saskatchewan. So we're in a great time and very lucky to be here. Really quickly, I just need to touch on a couple things regarding government relations, and then I'll let you have lunch. The ISIP program, and I know there is some conversation about the ISIP program earlier today, and there may be some more conversation tomorrow in the breakout sessions, as well as the Bear Pit. But it really has been a great program. Signed in 2018 for 10 years, goes to 2028. Just in the last 3 years, since 2019, Saskatchewan government has put out $275 million for more than 200 projects that are being completed or being started in the province. We understand the inflationary pressures that all are experiencing right now, but you know, and so many of the province projects have been able to adjust, and we're seeing them underway and some of them being completed. The Premier talked yesterday about a number of projects that will be forwarded to the federal government because the federal government has the final approval. And some of those projects, whether it's the Meadow Lake Recreation and Civic Center, they just would have found out yesterday that it's gone to the federal government. Martinsville with a community rec center. Some maybe not as attractive, the landfill decommissioning in Indian Head that I represent, not quite as romantic, but certainly just as needed. Also the Indian Head swimming pool renovation, that's a little more romantic. So these projects are all over the province, both urban and rural, bringing together communities, bringing together First Nations, because that's a big component on your success as to having your application agreed upon. So, this is a great program. I would recommend to any municipality that hasn't applied over the last couple of intakes that there is another intake that will be ending on May the 10th of 2022. It's recreation and culture projects. Keep your ear to the ground because there will be more projects. As I said, this goes out to 2028, so another 6 years of intakes that we want projects to be approved and that money to be distributed, not exactly a third, but quite often. So we're leveraging a lot of federal money to come back into the province for these projects. Last thing I want to talk about really quickly is municipal revenue sharing. And the program that came into place when we first became government, for those that have been elected a very long time, which I'm one of those, remember how it was distributed before, where it was kind of a decision of a government on budget day as to what revenue sharing would look like. Some years it was maybe adequate, many years it wasn't. It was a decision of government. Right now it's on a formula, has been since 2008 or 9, where it's 0.75% from 2 years previous. So the number this year is $262 million for revenue sharing. It's really the first time that it's dropped since that program has come into place. Last year, it was $275 million, so about a 4% decrease this year. But I remember when it was announced, and I'm just going to have to say this because when it was announced, it was with big fanfare, because that's what governments like to do with programs, that if revenue go up through the PST, we all benefit. If it drops down, we all take a bit of a hit. And that's where we are this year. May see it next year, as the pandemic has been 2 years. This revenue sharing is 2 years previous, so 2 years ago and next year. But I honestly think we're going to see that revenue tick upwards quite significantly after next year's budget. And I said to the Minister of Finance, she didn't necessarily take me up on it, but I don't know if any of you in the room would. $275 million last year. If we set it at $275 million and froze it for the next 10 years, would you be happy with that? Because nobody wants to see it drop down, so we'll guarantee $275 for the next 10 years, and we'll take anything that's on top of that. I don't think anybody will accept that. So there is a ebb and flow to municipal revenue sharing. It's usually been up. This pandemic has caused definitely a bit of a drop, but not as a significant drop as we had first anticipated. The last thing I just want to touch on and leave you with, seeing again my time, is the targeted sector support. And it was mentioned a little bit earlier, I think, by Mr. Iverson regarding communities working together and how important that is. So of the $262 million for revenue sharing, $1.5 million is split off of that, and it goes to programs that help communities build capacity, help communities with good governance, and help regional cooperation. It's been in place for the last 3 years, about $4.5 million over those 3 years, 1.5 per year, and has been very well received. The announcement just came out today, I believe, as to the successful recipients of the targeted sector support. How it is determined is through the local municipal organizations. Your organization, SUMA, SARM, and the New North is the ones that determine where this funding goes. It isn't a political decision at all. So $75,000 to the City of Warman to identify land use opportunities, $66,000 to the community of Fort Capel and Indigenous partners to identify mutually beneficial approach to sharing municipal services. And I can go on and on. There's 23 projects that were approved just as of today, and so look for that. If you weren't successful in your project over the past couple months here, it will be offered again next year. It's in this year's budget to be offered again next year, and so take advantage of that because it does help build local capacity as well as cooperation, which is so hugely important. I think that's enough. With that, thank you very much. There's something to be said for starting at 10 after 12 and know your importance. Thank you.
Good sport. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. That was the Honourable Don McMorris, Minister of Government Relations. And to give him an official thanks, we call upon our convention chair, Don Luding. Don?
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Minister McMorris, for being here with us, and sorry for the... I feel bad that you feel you have to rush because of lunch, but thank you again for being here. Thank you for coming back tomorrow with your colleagues for the Bear Pit and dialogue with the ministers. We will be donating to the Mike Battam Scholarship. Thanking you for being here today. And I just wanted to give you a quick summary for anybody in the room who doesn't know about the Mike Battam Scholarship. Mike Battam was a city councillor for the city of Regina and former president of this organization that exemplified the qualities that we look for in a municipal official. He was dedicated, passionate, kind, and genuinely caring about his city and municipal issues. And we honor his memory by donating to that scholarship for his other passion, which was education. So thank you again, Minister McMorris, and thank you all for being here. And I believe Danny is going to take over now again for a quick minute.
Thanks, Don. Thank you very much, Don. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is lunchtime, so please remain in your seats. And once again, the staff will come and organize the lines to the buffet out there. We have an excellent lunch ready for you today. And we also want to remind you that delegates will be back in the Grand Ballroom after lunch for the election of the new SUMA president. So that's going to be very exciting. And since the vote will be happening after lunch, I've been asked to ask you to make sure that you know where your credentials to log into the electronic voting platform are. This is for both voting and non-voting. That's mayors and councillors. And if you don't know where your voting credentials are, or if you don't have a web-enabled device, excuse me for reading, but I just don't want to miss any of this important information. Be sure to visit Cole back at the dots table. And Cole, if you'd stand up back there, buddy, so everybody can see, there's Cole. And if you have any trouble during the vote, you can also visit the dots table for tech support. Now, the lunch break is the last chance as well to visit the trade show, which is about 1.5 miles from here. Now, and you got to be back in your seats at 1:10. If you can make it, go ahead and have a look at the trade show. It's been a wonderful trade show. I got down there yesterday, had a good look around, and we've got some amazing vendors down there showing their wares and their services. So we want to thank them all for their support, which we'll do later on this afternoon. Now, we also have to mention the ballots for the prize. The prizes we'll be drawing for this afternoon. Make sure you get your ballot into the box, which is down in the trade show, and the cutoff for that is 1 o'clock. So, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your lunch. Bon appetit. I'm Danny Hooper, and I'll be back with you at 10 minutes past 1 as we get underway with the election of our brand new president. Thank you. I did say that. Once again, QC will be calling